the Green Ranger. Not the Ranger we're all familiar with from the live action series though. This is a new version of the Green Ranger. In the comic, instead of Tommy becoming the White Ranger, thereby replacing Green, Tommy dies and is resurrected becoming the White Ranger after the events of the Shattered Grid. But mysteriously, a Green Ranger soon appears, taking out the panda monster the team had combined forces to take on single-handedly. As it turns out, Billy had been assisting Grace Sterling, the head of a tech company called Promethea, to power up the Dragon Power Coin in order to create a new Green Ranger. This new amped up Green Ranger returns during the Rangers' battle with a superpowered Chaos Putty before revealing himself to be a fellow student at Angel Grove, Matt Cook. Matt was already a strong kid before becoming the Green Ranger, having been captured by Rita Repulsa and withstanding months of experiments before finally escaping, and also being quite heroic, saving a kid from, being crushed by fallen rubble before being teleported to Promethea for Grace to offer him this brand new position as a Ranger. He's got an amped up version of the Dragon Dagger, an amped up suit. It's also just so cool seeing the White Ranger and Green Ranger fighting alongside each other with their respective Zords.
Coming in at number 9 is Doggy Kruger. I'm leading with my favorite here. Anubis Doggy Kruger is one of the most memorable characters in the Power Rangers world, mostly because he is a literal blue dog-like alien, but also because he's freaking cool. He's technically part of an alien race called the Syrian, but while not being human, he still commands massive respect from the human Rangers as the chief of the Power Rangers SPD, Space Patrol Delta, serving as their commander on Earth. He has extremely outstanding leadership skills and a dedication to seeing the SPD Rangers succeed and remain safe at any cost. Instead of possessing a whole whack of gadgets and weapons, the Shadow Ranger's Galaxy single sword style is just so far and above anything that his opponents can come up with that it makes him one of the strongest Rangers in the Power Rangers universe, at least in terms of combat. Using this style, he has defeated 100 aneroids on his own. It has even given him the moniker of Hell's Guard Dog. How awesome is that?
The White Ranger, Tommy Oliver. It was only a matter of time before Tommy was mentioned, right? Tommy is probably the most famous Ranger ever. He was the Green Ranger and White Ranger, plus several others in the live action series. An absolute legend of the franchise. But back to the comic. When Tommy is seemingly taken out by Lord Drakon after being stabbed through the back with Saba, the Rangers mourn his death, but when Drakon sent the Ranger Slayer back in time to eliminate the Rangers, she breaks free of his influence and ends up changing the past version of Tommy's fate for the better, piercing him with a green crystal-infused arrow that gives him the vision of this, dark future, and leading to his soul becoming this entity that haunts Drakon, eventually giving Tommy enough power to resurrect himself. After the Shattered Grid arc, Tommy reappears now as the White Ranger and soon takes over the team upon Jason, Zach, and Trini's departure. The White Ranger is just awesome. He's got the baddest Zord, the coolest sword, and Saba that can talk, and it's Tommy Oliver. He kicks butt. What else can I say?
Number 7, Ranger Slayer. Kimberly Hart was the original Mighty Morphin Pink Ranger, and the Ranger that all the other guys in school had a crush on. But she is straight up a total badass. But for this point on the list, I want to talk about the Kimberly Hart of a different reality. In said alternate reality, the world of the Coinless, this version of Kimberly became a deadly ranger named the Ranger Slayer under the mind control of the incredibly powerful Drakon. As the Ranger Slayer, Kimberly piloted the Grave Zord and was also the leader of the Promethea Rangers team, which included another powerful ranger, Magna Defender. She also wielded the bow/sword of darkness. The Ranger Slayer initially worked for Lord Drakon before breaking free of his mind control, and after his fall, the Ranger Slayer takes the place of Lord Drakon in the new timeline.
Alright, the Death Ranger. This is one of the coolest Rangers I've ever seen. I always wanted there to be stuff like this in Power Rangers, like when I was a kid. So the Death Ranger was sealed away by the original Omega Rangers, but then Andros, the in-space Red Ranger, freed it, cutting a deal with the Death Ranger to avenge those responsible for the destruction of his planet in exchange for its freedom. Big mistake. Death Ranger ended up possessing the Omega Rangers and Zane, the Psycho Silver Ranger, turning them into evil soldiers he commanded at will. What makes Death Ranger so powerful is its ability to switch host bodies. You can destroy the body, but his essence still remains. He'll just move on to find another host to take on. When Andros managed to free Jason from Death Ranger's possession, the battle wasn't over, as Death Ranger just entered into its Zord instead. A sentient Zord. Pretty cool. More like a Transformer, I guess, at that point. It took our heroes combining their Zords to form the Dragon Thunder Zord in order to take it out. For now, that is.
Number 5, Merrick Balatin. There is a bit of a trend of the 6th Ranger being the most powerful of whoever the respective Ranger team is. These 6th Rangers have been able to take down foes by themselves that even a full team of 5 Rangers couldn't take on. One of my favorite 6th Rangers would have to be the 6th Wild Force Ranger, Merrick Balatin. Merrick was originally a noble warrior from the mythical nation of Animarium before he was corrupted by the wolf mask that he used to save his nation. He then became the monster known as Zen Aku. As Zen Aku, he was one of the most imposing enemies that the Wild Force Rangers ever faced, but luckily for all of us, he eventually purged the evil from within himself and became the Lunar Wolf Ranger for the team. Merrick got access to the Predazord, a combo Zord that had the Wolf, Hammerhead Shark, and Alligator Zords. Also, I have to tell you about his main weapon, the Lunar Q, as in Pool Q. It could be a saber, a sniper, or a Pool Q, and it had some interesting but devastating attacks to say the least. It's also worth noting that being the Lunar Wolf, he stayed as a bit of a loner, being all brooding and cool, never fully integrating with the team of Rangers. You could even say that he was a lone wolf. Ooh, wordplay, nice.
The Omega Rangers are next on the list. The original Omega Rangers were powerful on their own, some of the earliest Rangers in existence, fighting in space against evil threats. The Omega Rangers lay dormant for many years, but became active again when 3 of the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Jason, Zack, and Trini, took the mantles after leaving the original team, along with Kia being the blue Omega Ranger, who would soon turn on them. It's cool that they took that original departure of those cast members and MMPR and made it part of the story in like a really cool way. With the whole peace conference thing just being a cover-up for a much cooler mission. Being recruited by the Blue Emissary to become the Omega Rangers and protect the universe from evil. More specifically, protecting the grid from villains looking to gain power from it. These Rangers would prove to be some of the universe's most powerful heroes, but when the Death Ranger possessed them, it took the combined might of Andros, the MMPR team, Archon, Kevor, and Journey to take them on.
Number 3, Jason Lee Scott. Jason Lee Scott is also one of the most powerful Rangers throughout all of Power Rangers media. He led the original team of Mighty Morphin Rangers against Rita Repulsa and many other foes. He took down a small army of monsters by himself, and he would even return later to become the Gold Zeo Ranger. In the comics though, he leads an army of Rangers against Lord Drakon's forces in a battle to save the entire Power Rangers multiverse. Before even becoming a Ranger, Jason was pretty adept with martial arts, and he had the leadership traits that made him the perfect choice to become the Red Ranger. He was even able to defeat Tommy, one of the strongest Rangers in combat, when he was brainwashed by Rita Repulsa. He is often considered by fans to be the best Red Ranger and the best Power Ranger ever. And in a contest run by ABC Family in 2004, Jason was voted the best Power Ranger of all time. But we know for a fact there's at least someone stronger than him.
The Emissaries. The Emissaries are these like ancient warriors that represent the Morphin Masters, an ancient civilization dedicated to studying the Morphin grid. They each represent a different Ranger color, red, yellow, and blue, and what's cool about them is that they don't really have one solid form. They're constantly phasing in between different Ranger forms, making it like cool spotting different Rangers from over the years, like, oh, that's Ninja Storm Red, or like, cool, that's Time Force Blue, you know? They used to be, you know, Rangers themselves, the Squadron Rangers, but during their battle with Dark Spectre, they essentially became conduits of the grid, just letting its power consume them, and they became basically one with it, now becoming these like kind of celestial beings. The Emissaries are supremely powerful guardians of the grid that exist outside of the realm of time and space, observing events across time and watching over the various Ranger teams that fight to protect their worlds.
Number 1, Drakon. Who is the most powerful of the Mighty Morphin Rangers? It is without a doubt the Green Ranger Tommy, who, as we said before, becomes the White Ranger. But who is the most powerful Ranger ever? Tommy! Tommy, but not the regular Tommy. Instead, it's an evil, super villainous, tyrannical, alternate universe Tommy who becomes the insanely powerful Lord Drakon. Instead of breaking his connection to Rita Repulsa, this universe's Tommy stuck with her. This guy was able to breach the Morphin Grid itself, which he did by killing at least one Ranger on every team throughout the multiverse and stealing a Morpher from each of them. Eventually, he became a god and was able to destroy the whole multiverse. Then, he used his power to create a new Earth where he was basically like Superman. Also, he looks super cool. Combining both the Green Ranger and the White Ranger looks with gold accents, it's Gabella. A hell of a way to take the greatest Ranger and make him the most despicable.
Number 10, Bulk and Skull, Purple and Orange Rangers. That's right! Bulk and Skull actually end up becoming Power Rangers as well in the comics. In the show and in the comics, they are both known as being rivals of the other kids at the school, mistreating and picking on the Power Rangers when they are in their civilian forms. Not so nice. But also, Bulk and Skull are actually massive fans of the Power Rangers, kinda like the relationship Flash Thompson had with Peter Parker and his superhero identity of Spider-Man earlier on in the comics. And just like Flash, they also become heroes. Well, at least for a time. And over time they definitely become allies to the Power Rangers, so you know, they become better people as time goes on. Yay! They both helped Zordon with a mission when the Power Rangers were trapped. He made them temporary Rangers by giving them each extremely rare power coins. However, Alpha removes their memories of this incident afterwards, so they themselves do not remember their time on this mission as the Purple and Orange Rangers. Pretty sad considering how much they love the Power Rangers.
Number 9, Nick Russell, the Red Mystic Force Ranger. The light that would save the world from darkness, aka the most powerful wizard of all time. His magical abilities kind of automatically put him near the top of the list in terms of powerful rangers, but then he had this really cool, not battleizer, but it technically acted as one. I'm a little fuzzy on how exactly that works, but he has his red Dragonfire Ranger form, which is when he straight up merges with the dragon Fireheart. That sentence I just said sounds so cool, but if you saw him use this form in the show, then you know how cool it looks. Wielding the power of fire itself, being the leader of the Mystic Force Rangers and the son of Leanbow, Nick Russell is super cool and very powerful. Unfortunately, in the comics he doesn't get many chances to really display his power. He and the other Mystic Force Rangers were split off into their own pocket universe, then later he receives Zordon's call through the Morphin Grid and is all the way in the back of a panel of a bunch of other powerful Rangers who rally to Zordon's pocket dimension led by Eric Myers, the Quantum Ranger, for a last stand against Lord Drakon. Then him and the other Mystic Rangers pilot the Titan Megazord during the battle on the moon of the world of the Coinless against Drakon and his Ranger sentries. And at number 8 as well is Trent Mercer, the White Ranger. Trent here is another Ranger who started off his time as a villain, which means he has to have enough power to make him a threat. That's why pretty much all of the anti-hero, once a villain Rangers are kind of OP. Trent specifically has a bunch of abilities that are almost rude. He had the ability of super speed and camouflage, which were the abilities of the Red Ranger and Black Ranger, and he arguably used them way better than those Rangers did. But on top of that, he wielded not one, but 2 Zords, the Dragozord and the Stegozord. Most people can't say that for themselves. Also, having 2 Zords, he even had the capability to combine the 2 of these really powerful Zords into a Megazord that he could pilot all by his lonesome. The Rangers were extremely lucky they were able to sway him over to their side as the White Dino Thunder Ranger, because with his advantages, he may have caused the end for them. Also, I just gotta say his design and his Super Dino Mode design are just so cool, and unlike a lot of other designs from the show, his aren't totally ridiculous. Unfortunately for his comic book story, he doesn't play a major role in any story. He and the other Dino Rangers get whisked off into their own pocket universe, and at the end of the arc are restored back to their timeline, but we have to at least mention this awesome 6th Ranger.
Number 7, Kimberly Hart, the Pink Ranger. Kimberly Ann Hart, or just Kimberly Hart in some iterations, is one of the first main Rangers to appear, and the same is true of her in the comics. Kimberly was the first Pink Ranger, and while we talked about an alternate version of Kimberly known as Ranger Slayer from the World of the Coinless reality from the comics, we did not talk about her main reality counterpart, who, like her alternate, is also super powerful and committed to fighting against the forces of evil and helping to protect innocent people and, of course, her friends. In the main continuity, Kimberly is not coinless, instead getting her power power from the pterodactyl power coin given to her by Zordon. To match it, she can also call on the pterodactyl Dinozord. She typically is best known for fighting with her power bow, but also possesses her blade blaster as well. Kimberly was also one of my favorite rangers growing up from the 90s series. I even used to have a little plush doll version of her that I would actually take everywhere with me, and now I'm wondering if she's also the reason that I generally like playing as like a ranger, like the class in games, and that I always prefer to use a bow, which is a thing.
Number 6, Magna Defender. I don't care if you don't count him as a ranger, the Magna Defender is one of the best characters from Lost Galaxy. He has the best aesthetic in terms of rangers, and he has the coolest backstory, making him an awesome anti-hero in the Power Rangers canon. The Magna Defender fought in a battle that occurred over 3,000 years ago. The Magna Defender's homeworld was attacked and overrun by Scorpius and his monsters, with his son Zyka used as a shield to stop the Defender from attacking Scorpius's army. His son then perished shortly afterward when he tried to attack Scorpius and save his father. So, of course, the Magna Defender swore revenge for both his son and their planet. Magna Defender is ruthless and will fight through the Rangers and civilians if it means he gets the revenge that he desires. Now, he doesn't have a morpher or a transformation. Instead, he possessed the body of Mike Corbett, the Red Ranger's brother, and used him to try and get the revenge that he wanted. But he left Mike's body and also left Mike with the power of the Magna Defender. Without a morpher or any transformation to rely on, he has to be very powerful. He has this awesome sword that obviously turns into a blaster as well, and he also wields the Toro Zord. Both of these are pretty darn powerful. He was also in that last battle against Drakon, and he essentially served as the 6th Ranger for the Lost Galaxy Rangers, so I'm calling him a Ranger. Damn it, you can't stop me.
Number 5, Billy Cranston, the Blue Ranger. Billy is often thought of as the brains of the core Power Rangers team, and he is also part of the original team of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, both in the show and in the comics. However, in the comics, a cool thing is that he's not really alone when it comes to this. In fact, while Billy is one of the most ingenious of the group, other Rangers also help him with his more intellectual projects and pursuits. Namely, I've seen Trini, the Yellow Ranger, help him multiple times, and although they were also close in the show, I feel like they're like even closer in the comics. Billy was chosen to become the Blue Ranger thanks to his patience and his smarts. Among his friends, both of these traits are celebrated. Billy was given the Triceratops power coin by Zordon, and to go with it, also pilots the Triceratops Dinozord. As time goes on, Billy becomes more confident and sure of himself, although initially he struggles to do so, as his smarts often seem to create barriers when it comes to communication and socializing between him and others. Why I really love Billy though. He like grows so much throughout his time as a Power Ranger.
And at number 4 is Orion, the Super Megaforce Silver Ranger. Okay, some people may be a little annoyed by Orion's inclusion here, some might not. And it all comes down to an incredibly divisive power that this guy possesses. As most of you might know, the 6th Ranger in Power Rangers media is almost always the most powerful one. They can usually take on threats on their own that the team can't even handle together. Orion, who became the Super Megaforce Silver Ranger after the 6th Ranger key landed on his planet, had access to the Super Megaforce Gold form, which gave him the abilities of all 15 6th Rangers. Using a fused together Ranger key, Orion was able to access the power of 6, amping him up to incredibly ridiculous levels of powerful and giving him a super thick armor that has little images of all 15 Rangers' helmets on the front. It does look a little silly, I totally will admit that. And the power of 6 seemed a little silly to a lot of people as well, but given the lore with the grid and all that, it's not like it's out of the realm of possibility. Either way, it doesn't matter too much, as in the comics he didn't actually do much fighting. It was more just cool to just see him there. But at one point in time, he had the ability to be more powerful than almost all other Rangers, and that makes him super cool.
Number 3, Andros, Red Solar Ranger. Andros is the Red Space Ranger or Red Solar Ranger. In the show, he has not just skills as a fighter, but also has actual superpowers, telekinetic ones that are typical of those who also live out on KO-35, a human colony located in outer space. Andros was also basically like the Silver Surfer with a drill sword. He could use his Galaxy Glider to fly through space, and has a Spiral Saber, which is a sword that's also like a drill, and which could be combined with his laser gun known as his Astro Blaster to make a souped up Spiral Saber, which is pretty cool. Like many others in the comics, Andros' story is basically a continuation of the version we know from the show Power Rangers in Space. At one point, Andros fights to protect his sister after Astronema is defeated, and she becomes free of her evil influence. We later learn that Charon and Astronema, while once the same person, have been split in twain, with Astronema Astronema becoming her own entity, freeing Karone from the guilt of Astronema's cruel and evil crimes. However, this turns out to be a genius plot of Andros's to both free his sister and give the people who Astronema hurt what they wanted most: revenge. He created a hard light hologram of Astronema in order to make the people of the court think that she was a separate entity, which they then got to defeat, and that also freed Karone from punishment. Although she was not as happy about that. She was like, hey, let me go to jail or be killed.
And in at number 2, the Quantum Ranger Eric Myers. Before becoming a ranger, Eric Myers was actually a soldier working for the for-profit militant group called the Silver Guardians. He was rather resentful and pretty selfish at the beginning, and he even gained the powers of the Quantum Morpher by force to further his career as a soldier. He came on as the Time Force Rangers' 6th Ranger, which, as we know, makes him powerful automatically. And while he affiliated with the Time Force Rangers, he ultimately stood a bit more alone with one of the best arsenals and Zords in the franchise, the Quantosaurus Rex Zord. The Q-Rex doesn't have a cockpit for a ranger, but it's controlled through voice command on the Quantum Morpher. The Q-Rex was awesome, and he used quantum energy to put him ahead of most other rangers, but in the comics, he really got some time to shine, leading the group of assembled and reunited rangers to appear outside of the command center for that famous last fight against Lord Drakon. Seeing him standing there in front of this big group of wildly powerful rangers, it's great. He may be a bit of a jerk with a soft, warm underbelly, but I think it's because he's awesome and powerful enough to back it up.
Number 1. The Morphonaut, also known as the Phantom Ranger. This ranger was a mysterious figure whose identity was unrevealed. They appeared in both the Power Rangers in Space and Power Rangers Turbo shows. The Phantom Ranger hailed from the same homeworld as Zordon, known as Eltar. In the comics, we learned that before he was known as the Phantom Ranger, this ranger had a different alias, the Morphonaut. As the Morphonaut over 10,000 years ago in the past, he was trapped inside the Morphin Grid as a preventative measure to protect others from the evil that lurked around its perimeters. Hundreds of years in the past, the Morphonaut ended up being freed from the Morphin Grid and would go on to help the Squadron Rangers in their fight against the Dark Spectre. Eventually, the Morphonaut became corrupted by Dark Spectre, which he chose to do in order to protect the Squadron Rangers. His armor turned black, and although the Squadron Rangers would later defeat Dark Spectre, freeing the Morphonaut from their influence, the Morphonaut's armor would remain black, and they would take on the name of Phantom Ranger in their new form.
Coming in at number 10 is Carter Grayson. Grayson? Yes, but no relation to Nightwing. Don't worry. No, Carter Grayson was Mariner Bay's best firefighter, saving people and for some reason using his awesome martial arts before he even became the Red Lightspeed Rescue Ranger. He is incredibly practical, using whatever tools he has on hand to do the job, like when he drove the Lightspeed Rescue Rover into battle crushing a monster. He's clearly very capable as well, as he has only ever resorted to using his Battleizer 3 times in total in the show. In the comics, during Shattered Grid, he was the only one of the LSR Rangers to survive Drakon's attack, and he teamed up with Jen Scotts, Kimberly Hart, and the other surviving Solar Rangers, doing their best to help bring the fight back to Drakon, eventually resulting in the rewriting of reality. But he didn't really have anything to do with that, he just fought Drakon's forces on the moon alongside the other Rangers, which is still cool. Number 9. Robert James. RJ has the honor of being the very first Purple Ranger, and he was also the very laid-back mentor to the Power Rangers Jungle Fury. He learned a technique known as the swoop technique, which is fun to say, but also gave him the curious ability to fight blind. But he also had an incredibly powerful bond with the Wolf Animal Spirit, the Violet Wolf Ranger Zord and the Wolf Pride Megazord. With the Spirit, he can perform the Wolf Beam and the Energy Strike attacks using dark purple energy to attack his enemies. The Energy Strike was able to take down Camille with 1 hit. Now, while he isn't really the leader of the Ranger team, he gives a great level of support to the team, and he is their mentor. When Lord Drakon attacked Jungle Karma Pizza, RJ was rescued by Jen Scotts and Kimberly Hart and uses his wolf animal spirit in the fight that took place on the moon of the world of the Coinless, combining his animal spirit with other Zords. And at number 8 is Trey of Triforia. Trey here is the first Gold Ranger introduced in Power Rangers Zeo. He uses his Zord, Pyramidus, which can fly into space and can shoot these sweet golden lightning bolts. And by combining with the Zeo Megazord and the Red Battle Zord, he can create the Zeo Ultra Zord, Zord, which is the most powerful Zord in Ranger Zeo. He weirdly even gets split into 3 at one point: Tray of Courage, Tray of Heart, and Tray of Wisdom. It's weird. In the comics though, he rallies to the call of Zordon with a bunch of other Rangers to make a stand against Lord Drakon and has his Morpher upgraded by Dr. K. Tray also wields the Golden Power Staff, which could fire energy attacks, and every time he used it, he'd be like, "It's time for a gold rush," which is both hilarious and I kinda love it. I kinda support that. Good job. But in at number 7 is Antonio Garcia, the Gold Samurai Ranger, making him the 6th Ranger on that team. Antonio, like other 6th Rangers, is arguably the strongest Ranger on the team. He controls the element of light, which allows him to move just as fast as it, so that's pretty damn powerful right there, able to attack multiple enemies while looking like he hadn't even moved at all. His Zord, the Light Zord, is honestly a little silly looking, because it's a lantern. But it's still powerful, and he has also been in possession of the Octo Zord, which is actually a squid, and the Claw Zord, which is actually a lobster. There's a lot of weird, fishy, underwater themed stuff with this guy, as he also has the Barracuda Blade, the Barracuda Bite, and razor-sharp Barracudas that he would just throw at people during battles. I don't know. I actually have no idea why there's fish-related stuff here. I don't know. I'll never know, but he is really capable with it, so we can't really complain here. When Lord Drakon attacks the Samurai Rangers, Antonio is actually very capable and takes down some of the Ranger sentries really easily. He only gets defeated because he jumps in to save Mia, but he is only depowered and captured. We don't actually know what happens to him after that. Number 6, Yale of Sard. Okay, honestly, I had no idea that a feline could be a Power Ranger, but I am so glad that they can. This is awesome. Okay, so Yale is a cat-like alien from the planet of Sard. Yale was originally the runt of the litter, which actually allowed him to survive when the rest of his family did not. Yale became empowered by the Morphin Grid, which inadvertently caused a massive explosion and had the Omega Rangers arrive on Sard to apprehend the big old cat. And he is a big old cat. He's like yay high, and he's huge. What's interesting is that Yale actually proved to be too strong for these already incredibly powerful Omega Rangers. Yale was eventually depowered and became like a pet for the Omega Rangers, living on their ship with them and eventually saving the leader, Zack, from the Horrid. But eventually, Yale comes into contact with the Blue Omega Morpher thanks to a mysterious figure, the Blue Emissary. And man, Yale is such a cool looking Blue Omega Ranger. His strength and forgiveness make him an excellent addition to the Omega team, but also he's a big old cat, and that's adorable and also terrifying.
Number 10, Black Dragon. Oh no, it's an evil Zord! Able to shift his size at will, this evil Zord first appeared when a green chaos crystal became charged with green chaos energy and opened a portal in the Rangers command center, allowing Black Dragon to walk right in. He gave them a chance to surrender, but when they declined, he tore a path through the Power Rangers while absorbing their powers and knocking Billy out. This Zord would go on to fight all 6 of the good guys' Zords at once. He has super speed and moving armor, which Goldar says in issue 9 seems to grow and overlap in a way he has never seen before. This Zord is able to absorb the powers of the Power Rangers by shooting a blue laser out of his mouth and can fire phasers from his hands, which are powerful enough to send its victims flying through walls. One other power that is apparently his most devastating is an energy shockwave that it can fire from its mouth that is supposedly powerful enough to kill all 6 Rangers. However, before we got a chance to see this in action, his attack was interrupted by a shot from Kimberly's power bow, so we'll just have to take his word on this one. Once defeated, this armor was appropriated by the Yellow Ranger. Of course, a Zord is only as powerful as its pilot, who turned out to be the evil Lord Drakon, but more on him later.
Number 9, Scorpina. Scorpina is one of my favorite characters in the comics and in the show. She is one of Rita Repulsa's enforcers, similar in rank to Goldar. Scorpina is known in the comics to be extremely deadly and shows great prowess as a fighter. She often fights with a crescent-shaped sword, which can be thrown like a boomerang. Boomerang blade, go! In giant-sized form, however, she becomes even more deadly, turning into a human-scorpion hybrid monster that wields a stinger ponytail and a large claw hand. To me, she's a fan favorite. I'm a fan, and she's one of my favorites anyways, so I think we can count it that way. Scorpina, while generally seen as, just a foot soldier, could be considered more powerful because of her aspirations to rise above her station and gain even more power than Rita Repulsa herself. This is something we we see her working towards years into the future in the comics when she appears. When she resurfaces, she reveals her plan to attain more power than Rita by allying herself and paying tribute to Lokar the Terrible. This is also when we get a look at her new giant metal scorpion form, which is even more fierce than her prior form. While she is defeated here, Scorpina is just a great villain who consistently proves herself in fights against the Rangers throughout her character's history.
Number 8. Dane. Dane is an alien bounty hunter, known for his inspired tactics and his sardonic wit. We first met him while he was rotting away in a prison, only to be broken out by agents working for the dreaded Lord Zed. He was hired to destroy the Power Rangers, but went about it in a refreshingly intelligent manner. Rather than immediately going after the team, he studied footage of them battling the villains Squat and Babu so he could analyze how the Rangers managed to defeat their foes. Once he had reviewed all the available footage, he began spying on the team, watching their fights and memorizing all of their moves and their personalities in order to come up with detailed plans on how best to defeat each of them. In their first conflict, Dane managed to quickly and with relative ease defeat the Power Rangers, but chose to leave them alive in order to send a message. He managed to defeat the Rangers again, even when they were in their Zords and when they combined into a Megazord, but was eventually ambushed and captured by the Omega Rangers. He soon escaped from the Omega Rangers base and did battle with the mighty Morphin Power Rangers again, but was severely outnumbered and chose to retreat. He's a powerful foe both for his fighting skills, tactics, and the ability to know when to cut his losses and get out of there.
Number 7. Astronema. I honestly love Astronema's look. Astronema is known as the Princess of Evil or the Princess of Darkness. I wish I was the Princess of Darkness, that's such a cool name. She is the main antagonist in Power Rangers in Space. But while we know her as a villain on this list, she wasn't always evil. In fact, at a young age, Astronema was known by the name instead of Carone, and was the sister of Andros, who would grow up to become the Red Space Ranger. When she was young, Carone was kidnapped and brainwashed by Ecliptor and Dark Spectre. She was raised to become the evil heir to Dark Spectre, who gave her the name of Astronema. In fact, while deep down Astronema was always Carone, she would still work to earn Dark Spectre's favor and would end up succeeding, earning the title as his heir. Before she was an enemy to the Space Rangers, she would also become an enemy to the Prism Rangers and the Omega Rangers, even falsely claiming to have killed the Prism Rangers when, in reality, she really had only killed the Pink Ranger of that team.
Number 6. Psycho Green. This former member of the Supersonic Rangers, Trek, was somewhat of an odd man out on his team, frequently being excluded from missions by the team's leader, Ace. This provided a perfect opportunity for the evil Dark Spectre to get in his head and convince him that his teammates didn't value him and that he should become evil. He drew his fellow Rangers into a trap, but he tried to spare his team's Pink Ranger, essentially telling him, "You've always been cool, Pink Ranger. Don't come to school tomorrow." Unfortunately, the entire team was killed in his trap, and Trek joined Dark Spectre, becoming the very first Psycho Ranger. In 1869, while attempting to break Rita Repulsa out of her moon prison, his ship was shot down and he was presumed dead. In reality, he was placed in hibernation for 100 years until he was awoken by the moon landing. He would go on to crush and kill Jamie Gilmore, the Black Ranger, with a boulder and break Daniel O'Halloran, the Pink Ranger's visor, causing him to die in the vacuum of space. He took on his monster form and chased the Rangers all the way to Rita's palace before the Blue Ranger managed to defeat him by sacrificing himself in an explosion. But even this did not kill the Psycho Green Ranger, as he survived, buried by the debris for decades, and returned to take on the latest generation of Power Rangers.
Number 5. The Death Ranger. The Death Ranger recently had their own one-shot, which came out this past summer, and honestly, I think they're a super cool character. The Death Ranger was once the original Gold Ranger of the Omega Rangers, known as Spark. This original team hailed from the Morphin Master's homeworld of Safe Haven, although Spark was actually an alien from the planet Avadias. Due to being from Avadias, Spark did not understand the concept of death or grieving, as on their planet, people didn't necessarily die. Instead, they would end their living journey before beginning a new one as their consciousness joined a collective referred to as the Legacy. Gold Ranger Spark, as we learn in the one-shot, which also has ties to the Charge to 100 Power Ranger event, would end up betraying their fellow teammates and becoming the Death Ranger. As the Death Ranger, Spark would go on to possess Zane, Jason, and Gale of Zard, becoming the Silver Space Ranger, Red Omega Ranger, and Blue Omega Ranger respectively for a time.
Number 4. Rita Repulsa. Perhaps the Power Rangers' most iconic villain, both in the comics and the original television show, Rita Repulsa was the daughter of Lady Fienna of Ludus and the evil Master Vile. When Fienna learned of Vile's vile nature, she fled before giving birth to Rita. Master Vile tracked them down, killed Fienna, and took Rita for his own, raising her to be evil and cruel, teaching her dark magic. She recruited an alien named Finster, who could create clay sculptures of abominable creatures who Rita would then bring to life to do her bidding. She joined the evil Lord Zedd and took up conquering planets in his name, trying to conquer Earth before being defeated and trapped in a space dumpster by Zordon for 10,000 years, before escaping and prompting Zordon to assemble his team of Power Rangers who fought Rita, preventing her from taking over Earth. Her story in the comics is pretty much the same as it is in the TV show, although she tends to be written much less jokey and over the top in the comics. Like in the show, she is a powerful and dangerous foe, both because of her sorcery, her treachery, and her seemingly endless army of putties.
Number 3, Lord Drakon. Lord Drakon is an alternate evil version of Tommy Oliver, the Green Ranger turned White Ranger, from the reality known as the World of the Coinless, where he's neither. He's not a ranger anymore. Here, Tommy stayed loyal to Rita Repulsa after being convinced initially that Rita ruling the world would actually maybe be a good thing. Would it be a good thing? I don't know. As such, he helped her to conquer city after city until they made their final stand against the Power Rangers and Zordon. In this showdown, Tommy faced off with the Red Ranger Jason, who at the time was in the process of being given more power and turned into a new kind of ranger by Zordon. Interrupting this process, the two fought one another, with Tommy stealing Jason's newfound power and emerging triumphant in the end, holding Jason's shattered helmet. While some of the other Rangers would go on in the world to form the Resistance, Jason would not, instead being believed dead, but actually being kept as Lord Drakon's secret prisoner. Once the Rangers and Zordon were defeated, the Earth was conquered, and Lord Drakon had learned pretty much all he could from Rita. He even turned on her, betraying her and killing her so that he alone would rule the world.
Number 2, Lord Zedd. Yet another villain from the TV show who made the jump from the pages of the comics. Lord Zedd is the self-proclaimed Emperor of Evil. He was deformed when he tried to claim the legendary Zeo Crystal for himself. As the crystal was surrounded by a force field that damages evil, his skin was burnt off, giving him his distinctive look. He is Rita Repulsa's boss, who didn't think conquering Earth was worth his time, so he left Rita in charge of the conquest before leaving to take over other systems across the galaxy. When Rita failed to defeat the Power Rangers and conquer Earth, he returned, melted Rita's staff, depowered her, and took over the operation. He was able to create even more powerful putty creatures than Rita, and was able to transform a simple piranha into a giant monster known as Pirantis Head. Rita eventually gave him a love potion and the two were wed, making them the universe's most terrifying and evil power couple.
Number 1, Dark Spectre. Dark Spectre is probably one of the best of the worst when it comes to Power Rangers villains, both in the comics and in the show. Dark Spectre is like one of the main guys. He is an overarching antagonist across various series, including Mighty Morphin, Zeo, Turbo, and even Power Rangers in Space. When it comes to the comics and the shows, he is often portrayed as being a major antagonist. Although despite being known as the Grand Monarch of Evil, he is not my personal favorite villain, to be honest. That honor still stays with villains Rita Repulsa and Ivan Ooze. Classic Ivan Ooze. Hopefully we get to do a list where I gotta talk about him. Also, why is Rita Repulsa so hot in the comics? And is that just me that gets those vibes? Maybe it's just me. Andrew's not saying anything, so that's not giving me a lot of...
It's not just you.
Dark Spectre is also the head of the United Alliance of Evil. Sounds so organized. At one point in the comics, he has his lieutenants recruit other more promising evil fledglings as he searches for someone to become his evil heir. Guy just wants an evil heir, you know what I mean? Isn't that what we all want in life? I would love an evil heir. Astronema proved to be the one he bestowed this honor upon, manipulating her into becoming supremely evil. Seeing her parents as a great threat, he had them killed and lied to Astronema, blaming the Power Rangers, saying that they were the ones responsible for their deaths. Pretty evil.
And coming in at number 10 is the Psycho Rangers. Now I was about to put the Space Rangers here, but then I remembered the Psycho Rangers. The evil princess Astronema created this group of evil rangers to draw on the power of her master, Dark Spectre, and they were designed specifically to hunt down the Power Rangers. Each Psycho Ranger had a specific fighting style unbeatable by the ranger that they were the evil version of, and they were even a serious threat to the Ranger team even without all of their members. The Psycho Rangers were used by Astronema not only to defeat the Power Rangers but also to severely weaken Dark Spectre, whom Astronema was trying to overthrow. But then These guys even got monster forms that they turned into if their ranger forms were actually destroyed. They have an embedded second wind perk. That's so cool. The Space Rangers had to team up with the Galaxy Rangers to even take out a powered up version of these guys, and it was still a close fight. In the comics, we get to see the origin of the very first Psycho Ranger, Psycho Green, who was actually the Green Supersonic Ranger before he turned, and he served as the right-hand man for the Dark Spectre himself. Number 9, the Omega Rangers. The Omega Rangers were a small but ancient faction or team that are specifically around to operate in the most dangerous and most remote areas of space, and they're powered by the classical elements of fire, water, earth, and air. Now originally the team was around many millennia ago on the Morphin Master's homeworld of Safe Haven, and they were originally composed of Bledsoe, the Red Fire Ranger, Apophy, the Black Air Ranger, the Purim, Yellow Earth Ranger, Haza, the Blue Water Ranger, and Spark, the Gold Sun Ranger. But Spark turned on his fellow Rangers, being taken over by the possibilities of having death-defying powers. He became the Death Ranger, which, if you've seen our most powerful Ranger video, which you should, is one of the most powerful Rangers out there, even if he's evil. Despite that, the Omega Rangers were able to stop and imprison Spark, and they were also really cool. I really like them, and they're only in the comics, so check them out. Number 8, the Aquitar Rangers. During the 3rd season of Mighty Morphin's Power Rangers, these aliens who come from Aquitans filled in for Earth's original team of Rangers when they were turned into children. And in terms of power, they appeared at least to be equal to Zordon's team, which is absolutely saying something. The other thing is that with a unique group of powers and really cool powerful Zords, this team was able to adequately fill in the gap left by Earth's out-of-commission forces, proving that they were exceptional in their own right, and a team to be reckoned with, particularly when considering how dangerous Rita Repulsa, Zed, and Master Vile were. They held their own, and they came back to reappear in the comics, which was super cool to see. Also, they were the first team that came into Power Rangers lore that showed that the Rangers were not just contained to Earth. They basically opened up the whole Power Rangers universe, and that's too cool for school right there. Coming in number 7, SPD. This might be a bit controversial, I'm not too sure. Some people don't like this, some people do. Power Rangers SPD was just a tiny part of Space Patrol Delta, basically an interplanetary police force that has jurisdiction over the whole galaxy. With that kind of a concept, they get points in the power scales for sure. They rely on an impressive amount of highly advanced technology to bring peace and order to the galaxy. For example, giant, exaggerated police vehicles. Super cool. What's really interesting though is that although major conflicts existed between the characters themselves, like between Jack and Sky, the team still pulled together and became strong enough to juggle multiple intergalactic threats throughout the series. Also, Doggy Kruger as the Shadow Ranger was strong enough to make up for almost any shortcomings the team might have had. And I haven't even touched on the fact that all the members of the B Squad in Power Rangers SPD, so the ones we actually focus on in the show and the comic, have a set of superpowers that they even continue to possess without their Rangers forms. They may not have been able to show their full potential in the show, but they sure as hell put up a hell of a fight. And also, definitely my favorite season of Power Rangers. That's just me. Number 6, Zeo. They derive their powers from a magic crystal whose power keeps magnifying over time. So that kind of automatically ranks them among the strongest. Theoretically speaking, the Rangers could have relied on the power of the Zeo Crystal to defend Earth for like basically forever. And it would just get stronger and stronger as they went on. But to get real here for a sec, production issues with the actual show meant they kind of had to switch to this weird car style, and it kind of brought everything just down a little bit. But despite that fact, the Zeo Rangers are one of the strongest Ranger teams in existence because of their firepower. They had a huge array of new, interesting, and absolutely wacky and weird Zords that could fend off massive attacks orchestrated by the Machine Empire, which itself was one of the strongest set of villains any Power Ranger team has faced ever. Number 5, the Super Megaforce. Also a controversial team. But with a name like that, how can they not be powerful? Now before I trigger you Ranger lovers out there, yes, I know the show of this team kinda sucked. They didn't really get individuality, but the comics fleshed them out a bit more, and I mean, Their concept? Super Mega Force is one of the strongest teams in Ranger history. A team of Rangers that is completely backed up by all the past Rangers powers in the history of the franchise, including a few we've never seen or heard of before, especially in the comics with the energy manipulating Squadron Rangers. And they even got Zordon's own apprentice as their mentor. How can they not be strong? They're more of an homage to every other team of Rangers, but because of that, they get points for nostalgia on top of their combined power. Coming in number 4 is Mystic Force. Magic. That's all I gotta say. No, I'm kidding. But Mystic Force is technically one of the most powerful Rangers teams ever. Their powers come directly from the Xenotome and ancient elemental magic, and not a lot of teams can say that. These Rangers cast incredibly powerful spells left and right. They wielded the power of really awesome Zords and had what might be the fanciest looking power-ups in Ranger canon with Legend Mode. But then their Red Ranger, Nick, he is amongst the most powerful Red Rangers around, but doesn't hold a candle to his dad, Lianbo, the Wolf Warrior, who also joined the team. Also, capes. They have frickin' capes, and that's really cool. Who else has capes? I don't have a cape. I wish I had a cape. I need a cape. Anyways, number 3, Ranger Sentries. I feel as though some people are gonna hate this being put here because they aren't really technically a team. They're more like an army. The Ranger Sentries were essentially an army created by a corrupted and evil version of Tommy Oliver, the infamous and insanely powerful Lord Drakon. In the world of the coinless and alternate reality, Drakon created a whole army of humans who wore mass-produced Ranger armor. The Mastodon Sentries and their super cool black and white costumes acted as like the police force and the bulk of the army in this world. The pink Pterodactyl Sentries were the long-range sniper infantry and support for the Mastodons. The green Zeo Sentries were the mobile infantry, and they also had these awesome tank mechs. It was so cool. The Silver Space Sentries were the air support, and they had sweet jetpacks, and everybody loves jetpacks, and energy blasters, so obviously super cool. Then we have the Jungle Fury Rhino Sentries, who were essentially tanks, not like the awesome mechs, but like these big hulking strong guys in massive armor. So cool. There were the Blue Samurai Sentries, and they seemed to be like the melee foot soldiers, as a force of them with the Mastodon Sentries invaded the city of Corinth. We also got these awesome Dino Charge Gold Sentries who had these massive shields and like super heavy firepower. They would make up like the shield wall, and they were just so dope. Next up would be the Sabertooth Sentries, who were like the yellow ones, and they seem to act as lieutenants. I don't know. I think that's what they do. It wasn't really clear what they do, but they're a step under the Tyrannosaurus Sentries, who are the Red Rangers of the army. And these guys serve as the personal elite guard of Lord Drakon and the other evil forces like Rita Repulsa and Scorpina. That was a lot, I know, but as you might have picked up, each of these class of soldier were based on a ranger from across the Power Rangers universe after Drakon went through and took the morphers from at least one of every team. Powerful? Absolutely. A team? That's up to you guys to decide, but I'm gonna say yes. Definitely a team. Just a big team. An army, some could say. Number 2, Time Force Rangers. Coming from the year 3000, the technology available to this team of Rangers almost automatically outmatches any of the other man-made Ranger powers in existence, as does their futuristic military-like training. But, I mean, let's be honest. The most obvious show of power here is their ability to travel through frickin' time. Theoretically, if they broke their oath about ethical time travel, which is boring, nearly any adversary they came up against could be thwarted before they ever rose to power in the first place, or before they were even born. Obviously, though, if they messed up, they could ultimately threaten the time-space continuum, so that's pretty bad, and they'll most likely stick to the rules, but still. The Time Force Rangers were an extremely strong group. Each Ranger's character had a strong sense of conviction to boot, especially Jen, their leader. And the Quantum Ranger? He made our list of most powerful Rangers for a reason. Also, again, they literally travel through time. That's kind of the main thing here. Time travel is super powerful. And in at number 1, it's the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I'm sorry. They fought and teamed up with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Godzilla, not to mention the Justice League. This group of teenagers with attitude went up against the witch Rita Repulsa, the head of an evil empire, Lord Zed, and even Rita's father, Master Vile. All villains who had enormous armies, resources, and raw magical power. As some of the most skilled fighters in the franchise, the MMPR team would jump head headfirst into hand-to-hand combat. They had a slew of ever-developing and exponentially more powerful Zords and weapons to summon if the battle called for it. But best of all, if the Rangers were forced to retreat, their tremendous resourcefulness would kick in as they worked together to develop a solution, innovate new technology, or just go grab like a long-lost artifact to use, creating a strength where there was once a weakness. So, like, while other teams may have had better power sources and all that fun, fancy, extra stuff, this team always found a way to adapt, kind of like Batman. But they also have the most experienced group of Rangers, especially when we take their comic book counterparts into consideration. Jason Lee Scott, Zach Taylor, Billy Cranston, Trini Kwan, Kimberly Ann Hart, and of course, they had Tommy Oliver.
Number 10. Zordon. Zordon of Eltar. He was an intelligent galactic wizard, and he of course is the mentor to the Power Rangers. Now, Bryan Cranston played him in live action, and his story begins thousands of years ago. He witnessed the birth of Rita Repulsa. He actually stood at the side of Rita's mother, Lady Fianna, and Zordon even gifted her a baby rattle and was even willing to protect Fianna and Rita from Master Vile. Master Vile being Rita's father. Now, Zordon actually blames himself for failing to protect the universe on his own. So later on, when Rita sought to conquer all these worlds, Zordon was of course against this. So naturally, a war broke out. This war lasted thousands of years, and then when Rita started to serve the Great Lord Zed to conquer our planet Earth, they occupied a palace on the moon, because that's what you do when you're evil, you make a palace on the moon. While this was happening, Zordon discovered 5 power coins and a map to the Desert of Despair. Rita got the 6th coin, the Dragon Dagger, and the Dragon Zord. And as the war came to a close, Rita used her powers to banish Zordon into a time warp, where he still exists just out of normal space-time. So the only way he can communicate with the outside world is through that energy tube. That's why we just see Bryan Cranston's face, which is good enough for me. He has a great face. So next, he constructed a base of operations known as the Command Center and began assembling the Power Rangers. Number 9, Lord Drakon. He made his first appearance in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 9. He's a supervillain and an evil Power Ranger who controls the Black Dragon. He's the main antagonist during the Shattered Grid event. He's a pretty big deal. He also happens to be an older version of Tommy Oliver. He's actually from an alternate reality where he ruled over a technologically advanced Angel Grove. He was their oppressive ruler who had an army of Ranger sentries. Now, Lord Drakon is super intelligent. He manipulates Rita of the main continuity and also Rita from the world of the Coinless. In issue 9, it was revealed that Lord Drakon had been controlling his Black Dragon and was speaking through it as well. So once he achieved his final evolution, Drakon gained the ability to modify the universe. He underestimates his opponents, he's egotistical, and he thinks he's superior to any Ranger or God. So that's great. Number 8, Matthew Cook, the new Green Ranger. He made his first appearance in Go-Go Power Rangers issue 1. He's 16 years old, he likes football, pistachios, and bubble wrap. Don't we all? And he has a pretty wild day at school when he witnesses Kim activate her Gravesword. So he quickly put it together that his best friends are actually the Power Rangers. He approaches them, he's like, hey, I promise I won't tell, this is so great, please let me in. He's kind of a jock, but he's also quite friendly. He assisted the Rangers on a need-to-know basis. He didn't actually reveal himself to the public until Angel Grove was trapped by Lord Zed. Now, his Green Ranger form is different than Lorianne and Tommy's because Matthew has this extra golden trim on his suit as well. It's this glowing white trim that he has on his arms and his legs. Looks really cool. This power was given to him by Grace Sterling through the Dragon Power Coin. So when he finds out about his friends being Rangers, he wants them to tell him. He gets so angry when they don't tell him, but hey, it's just part of the rules of the Ranger. It's not their fault. He was so upset that he actually stopped dating Kimberly. And then finally, when he wanted to spark that relationship back up, it was too late because Kimberly was already taken by another Ranger. Too slow, Matthew. Number 7, Ranger Slayer. The Ranger Slayer made their first appearance in Go-Go Power Rangers issue 8. She's another version of Kimberly from the world of the Coinless, who used to serve under Lord Drakon. Before she escaped, she was brainwashed. She's the leader of the Promethea Rangers, and after the defeat of Drakon, she became the new leader of her world. She restored peace and brought it back to living conditions once Drakon was out of the picture. Now, she lost Billy, Jason, and Matthew of her world to the hands of Drakon, so now she opts to work alone in order to protect her friends. The power coin was returned to her, and combined with the new evil energy of the Bow of Darkness, she became the Ranger Slayer. She used her bow mainly in combat, which makes for really exciting action scenes, but she also has these futuristic bombs when she fights, so Double combo. Number 6, Jason, Red Ranger. He made his first appearance in issue 13 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Jason Lee Scott was chosen by Zordon to be the Red Ranger. He obtains the Tyrannosaurus Power Coin, Blade Blaster, and Power Sword. Now, he used to be a bully like Bulk and Skull, but he changed once he started to take on karate classes. He was determined to be a better person because, well, bullies suck. Now, cut to 6 years later, he's now teaching said classes, so he's a quick learner, and also now he's passing on his knowledge. We love growth. We love to see it. After he became the Red Ranger, he still kept those lovable qualities as a leader and teacher. So Jason is the first to attempt to correct something if it goes south. He's the one to gather the troops, but the thing about Jason is he also beats himself up when things don't work out. Like, for example, he blamed himself for years for allowing Tommy to lose his Green Ranger powers. Number 5, Kaya. After the universe went back to normal following the events with Lord Drakkon, the alien Kaya got these amazing abilities, these electricity-based powers. Now, these powers resulted in the passing of her family, so she left. She actually was literally chased out of her home. And then she found herself with trainee Jason and Zack as one of the Omega Rangers. She was a great fighter and easily ahead of the rest of the team, but those family traumas were just still lurking around her brain. She was having a tough time coping with it, so much so that she eventually became their enemy, sadly. She took out the Blue Emissary and had her scope set next on the Power Rangers. Now, the reason she flipped was because she believed that the Power Rangers were just creating another Drakkon to go and take over the universe. So she acted out. I mean, more than fair. You were chased out of your village, you had a horrible childhood. It's normal for you to think these things. Powerful yet conflicted. Number 4, Tommy Oliver, the White Ranger. Tommy gets quite a bit of attention in these stories and movies. Now, most of us, like myself, picture Jason David Frank when we mention Tommy Oliver. He's like the face of my childhood. And his time as the White Ranger is perhaps one of the most notable. See, as the White Ranger, Tommy had a mythical sword to go along with his drop kicks. Now, these swords are neat because they obtain the personality of that who is wielding it. You know, they're a bond. They're a weapon bond. The first 2 White Rangers were the leaders of their teams, and believe it or not, the White Ranger was never actually originally planned. It was the fans who wanted more once he left the show as a Green Ranger. Fun fact. So they used the White Ranger as a mysterious way to bring him back in. It was Tommy's White Ranger who used a single Zord in a fight, whereas others needed to combine their Zords. His would act by itself. How cool is that? And to make the White Ranger more unique, he's immune to the forces of evil. Hallelujah. Number 3, the Psycho Rangers. We're the Psycho Rangers. We're faster than you, we're smarter than you, we're stronger than you, but we're evil. Cool, put that on your resume. It's a great introduction. The Psycho Rangers are the evil versions of the Space Rangers. They were created from the evil Princess Astronema in order to take the power of her master, Dark Spectre. They hunted down the Power Rangers by tracking their energy, voices, and communicator noises. Now, these Psycho Rangers are cool because they all have a specific fighting style that's unbeatable to their respective color on the good team, with of course Psycho Red leading the team. They were made to defeat the Power Rangers, but also they were made to weaken the Dark Spectre. See, the fun thing about these guys off the bat is that they have a monster form as well. So Red Monster was a flame monster, Blues was an ice monster, Black was a stone monster, Yellow was a spider/hornet monster, nightmares, and Pink was a plant monster. So the good Rangers had a plan. They all dressed up the exact same as the Blue Ranger, and since the evil Blue fought a specific way, they were all able to team up and take him down. I'd be fine turning into a plant, but there's no way I'd want to become a spider/hornet. That's a hard pass. Number 2, Shredder. Oroku Saki, aka Shredder, is the leader, of course, of the Foot Clan, and he's the villain of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle franchise. But in this lovely crossover with the Power Rangers, he was even more menacing. The crossover took place in December 2019 when the Power Rangers arrive in New York City looking for the Green Ranger, and they're shocked when they see he's joined forces with Shredder and the Foot Clan. I wouldn't even know what to talk about first. I'm like, is that Donatello? Can I have some pizza? And what are you doing? Now, in a world where Shredder exists, of course, the Turtles have to exist as well. It's super fun until Shredder takes the Dragon Power Coin and the Power Morpher from Tommy. Now, Shredder is now the 3rd evil incarnation of the Green Ranger, right after Lorianne and Lord Drakkon. And finally, number 1, the Magna Defender. The Magna Defender was one of the many who fought in the battle that happened over 3,000 years ago. He was once a guardian to the lights of Orion. That was until the Magna Defender's homeworld was overrun by the evil Scorpius and his monsters. Sadly, his son Zyka was taken out in this battle when he was used as a shield for Scorpius. What a horrible way to go out. That and the destruction of their homeworld makes for one lone warrior out for revenge. He arrived to the jungle planet of Miranoi to release the lights of Orion, and when he lost a battle to Trecheron, he then fell into a pit gravely injured, where he then remained for years. Now eventually Mike Corbett, brother of Leo Corbett, the leader of the Galaxy Rangers, fell into the same pit. So the Magna Defender possessed his body and escaped the pit and went after Scorpius and the lights of Orion. Now he used this Taurizord and battled several times, just desperate for revenge. But he was also an enemy of the Rangers because, well, he was careless with civilians while he was fighting. He was a danger. When the Magna Defender was wounded, his son Zyka came back to him and said that he believed in him to make the right choice. And so then he sacrificed his life. That's right, Magna threw himself into the energy pit to neutralize its energy and save Terra Ventura, and in doing so, Mike was also released. He uses the Magna Sword to deliver an energy chop, and he can also create a force cage with it as well. He just throws the sword into the ground and bam, it generates this huge cube-shaped barrier around their target. It's pretty cool stuff. Kicking off the list at number 10. Eric Myers. The 6th Ranger of the Time Force Guardians, Eric Myers is a Quantum Ranger. Now, in his early days, Eric was a soldier working for the Silver Guardians, which was established by Wes Collins' father in order to protect Silver Hills. See, Wes was kind of the opposite of Eric. See, basically, they went to the same private school, but Eric had to work hard as a student, and Wes, alongside other snobby students, didn't really have to try hard. He was one of those kids, you know, in one of those schools. So they didn't get along naturally, so Eric refused to take advantage of Wes. He's just doing it himself, right? He wanted to study and get it done his own way rather than have the rich kid help him. So then he discovered that Wes was the Red Time Force Ranger, and then soon Eric became aware that the Time Force Rangers are looking for the quantum powers. And Eric just happened to get to it first. And then Eric became the Quantum Ranger himself. Now, he helped the Rangers from time to time, reluctantly though. And then when Eric was hurt near the end of the season from a Cyclobot, he handed his morpher over to Wes to step up and take over. Now, when Eric recovered, Wes gave him back his morpher, and then a new friendship has now begun. So they get along in the end, how nice. When the Rangers left for the future, Wes was left in charge of the Silver Guardians, and his new partner was now his new friend, Eric. Number 9, Jen Scott. The Pink Time Force Ranger had a pretty wild start to her heroic days. Now cut to the year 3000, Jen is now an officer for the Time Force Police, and crime was basically non-existent at this point, except for that pesky Ransik. Now Ransik was arrested and taken on trial at this time with the Red Force Ranger Alex bringing them in. Now Jen went to the trial with Alex because at the time they were dating. So after Ransik was captured, he proposed to Jen. How lovely was that? No more crime, open bar, let's dance. So she said yes, and all was great, but while transporting Ransik to the cryo prison, the team was attacked. Now right before Ransik escaped to the past, Looper style, they unfortunately killed Alex. So with Alex's final breath, he charged up the team, Jen, Lucas, Trip, and Katie, and they all traveled back to the past to find Ransik. Now Jen got his red chronomorpher and told her about the 4 others that could be used to become Time Force Rangers, so they traveled back to 2001 and arrived in Silver Hills. But at this point, they needed a Red Ranger, so they went back to Wes Collins, that guy I just mentioned, who just happened to look identical to Alex, which is a fun coincidence. And then Jen became the Pink Time Force Ranger and leader of the team. Number 8, Adam Park. Adam met Tommy, Kimberly, and Billy at first after he saved a baby with his friends. It was pretty epic. What an introduction. So he lived in Stone Canyon, California, but was visiting Angel Grove competing in Team Ninja. See, he was representing Stone Canyon. Now, Lord Zed saw how this dude could kick ass, so he and his 2 friends got kidnapped and put in the Dimension of Despair. The Power Rangers saved the day, but Adam and his friends saw their true identity when Tommy and Kimberly had to remove Billy's helmet after fighting the Serpent of Darkness. So Kimberly and Tommy at this point were like, you know what, we're good friends too. We're gonna also remove our helmets. Let's do it. That's what friends do. So Adam and his friends, Rocky and Aisha, were actually taken to the command center afterwards to meet Zordon. How cool is that? Sworn to secrecy, of course. So down the road, when the Rangers were heading to Switzerland for the World Peace Conference, Adam was picked to take Zach's place as the Black Power Ranger, with Rocky and Aisha taking over Jason and Trini's place as well. Guys, be there for your friends. You might just become a Power Ranger. Who knows? Number 7, Tori Hansen. The Blue Wind Ranger, and also the first female Blue Power Ranger in TV history, Ayo. She's from the Ninja Rangers, and one of the biggest things that stands out with Tori is that she's great at resolving conflicts with her words, rather than just, you know, kicking people in the neck. She does, however, still train at the Wind Ninja Academy, so if she had to, she could still right in your neck easily. She's a great surfer as well on her spare time. She's fast also, like really fast. She possesses superhuman speed. She can move faster than the human eye can see, and if she focuses hard enough, she can fight off mental attacks as well. How amazing is that? Surfing, fighting skills, super speed. So it'll come to no surprise that she can bend water as well as walk on it. This girl's literally Jesus. And she rides in style with a dolphin Zord as well, in case you don't believe the whole water thing. She's very into water. Number 6, Ryan Mitchell, the Titanium Ranger. That even sounds cool saying it out loud. See, Ryan's part of the Lightspeed Rangers, and it all started with a car accident when he was young, as most of these things usually start with a tragedy. Now, this wasn't your usual fender bender either. See, it was Ryan, his sister, and his father, and they were hanging over a cliff at one point. It was super intense, it was crazy. So Ryan was hanging onto his father's shoe, which is so scary, and that's when the spirit of Diabolico showed up and offered a deal, kind of like Mephisto, just popping up and being like, how can I help? Diabolico would save the child, but then he would raise the kid himself until his 20th birthday. So Ryan fell, and his father just had to agree at that point, right? He had no choice. Nothing like being raised by a demon. Good times. So while being raised, he was convinced that his father had actually rejected him rather than what really happened. And he favored his sister Dana, which wasn't true. She was also a Power Ranger at this point. So now he's becoming evil and he hates the Power Rangers naturally. So now down the road, Diabolical sent Ryan on this mission. The mission was to steal the prototype Titanium Morpher from their Aqua base and destroy the Rangers, including his sister Dana. Now Captain Mitchell saved the day by reminding Ryan of his childhood, where he snapped out of it and then joined the Lightspeed Rangers after all. Number 5, Andros, the Red Space Ranger. So the leader of the Space Rangers, Andros, is pretty unique. He's a human from a colony in space called KO-35, where telekinesis is a thing you can just obtain and have, kind of like in Looper. A lot of similarities to Looper in this one. So after the Turbo Rangers command center was destroyed, they left Earth, and that's when Andros found them. So even in space, you can still have a wild childhood as well. So when Andros was a kid, his sister Corone was kidnapped by Darkonda, so he made it his lifelong goal to find her, obviously. So him and his pal Zane joined the KO-35 army in hopes of becoming Power Rangers, and eventually they were both selected by Zordon himself to become the galaxy's first Space Rangers. And they were just given a spaceship. They were given the Astro Mega ship and then 4 other Astromorphers to assemble a squad down the road as well. Zane as well becoming the Silver Space Ranger. Now during a battle, however, with one of the Dark Spectre's monsters, Zane was injured badly. It wasn't looking good. So he had to be kept in a cryogenic tube inside the ship, Bucky Barnes style. Number 4, Anubis Doggy Kruger. Perhaps one of the most memorable characters I think on this list. Doggy is, well, a little bit different. Doggy is a Syrian, a cool combo of a human and a jackal. He is the SPD Shadow Ranger and also the commander of SPD's Earth branch until he got promoted to Supreme Commander of Space Patrol Delta. Now the first Space Patrol Delta was formed years back when Emperor Groom attacked their homeworld planet of Sirius with his Trubian forces. Now unfortunately they lost his battle and Sirius was destroyed, with Kruger waking up all alone on the planet with everybody else gone. What a tragic start. So when General Benag came to Earth later on, it brought back all these memories for Commander Kruger, and with the help of the B Squad Rangers, Commander Kruger faced his past and Benag. Now Cat Manx had also made Kruger a new compact device, so SPD Patrol Morpher, which allowed him to become the Shadow Ranger. Number 3, Sydney Drew. Sydney Drew is the SPD Pink Ranger. Now she comes from a rich family and she's kind of spoiled, not gonna lie. She's a model, singer, and she's actually great at fencing because, you know, one way or another, you still have to be a Power Ranger. Now, she's one of the 2 original SPD B Squad members next to Sky and Bridge. Now, on her birthday, she was only looking out for herself. She wanted to just do things for herself, not really include anybody else. And Jack Landers, the Red Ranger, made her do a scouting job on her birthday, which I gotta say, it's her birthday, let her relax a little. I mean, we get it, you're trying to change character, but it's her birthday. It's one day a year, come on. So she was annoyed until she realized that Jack didn't even have a birthday to begin with. So she changed her ways and made it a 2-for-1 birthday. So she turned her spoiled behavior around, and I mean, honestly, you love to see it. She was the daughter of a scientist, one of 5 that was exposed to this radiation, which gave them super abilities. So Sydney has these iron fists. Well, actually, she could transform into any element. She just needs to touch it. Hence the iron nugget on her belt. Number 2, Cam Wattenby. He's the son of Sensei Kenoe Wattenby, head of the Wind Ninja Academy, so you already know this dude is gonna drop you. He's sarcastic, cynical, but also quite intelligent. He was skilled but never was allowed to become a ninja himself, which always bugged him growing up. As, you know, rightfully so, that would bug me as well. But he did mentor the students during this, so he was part of the team, you know? Wasn't a ninja, but he helped them out, so close enough. Now, after Lathor sucked the academy into the sky, he took 3 students, Shane, Dustin, and Tori, to this underground dojo. Now, his father instructed him to give the students Wind Morphers, and they became the Wind Rangers. Now, his job on the team was to create all these cool gadgets. He was the gadget guy. He was brilliant, so he created power spheres, he created Zords, and other weapons for the team. Now, when his father was captured by the Thunder Rangers, Cam created a force field to protect him. Cam also discovered the missing piece to combine the Thunder Megazord with the Storm Megazord, so this guy's killing him. And finally, number 1, Merrick Balaton. Lunar Wolf Ranger Merrick Balaton is a member of the Wild Force Power Rangers. He's one of the most powerful when it comes to abilities. Now, he used to be a soldier from the land of Animarium thousands of years ago, but then he put on a legendary wolf mask with great powers found at Nazar's temple, and he was able to save the day. But the thing was, that mask was kind of haunted. I don't know, it wasn't removable, so it messed his life up a bit. He eventually became the evil Zen Aku. Now, the ancient warriors had no choice but to imprison him in a tomb. I mean, obviously, you can't put this guy anywhere, just sorry, go away. He wanted to be put out, but they were like, no, we can't do that. We have to just put you in this tomb. Now, cut to present day, the new Master Org freed Zen Aku in hopes to use him against the Rangers, but once a month on the night of a new moon, he would regain his memories, but then after come sunset, he would go back into beast mode. But once he gained control of his powers, he became the Lunar Wolf Ranger, and he's one of the most powerful, hence why we put him at number 1.